Hey, I'm Nick, and this is Aaron.
And we are the Two Mad Dads podcast.
Let's go.
All right, what's up, guys? What's up, dude? This is our first episode on video, and I think we're gonna keep it easy, keep it lighthearted here a little bit. Probably just watch some shorts and comment on what we're seeing. What do you think, Aaron?
All I gotta say is that you better hide your kids, hide your wife, because we got Heineken and Jewel up in this biatch. So
nice. Yep. I've been sipping a little bit of Crown. And, yeah, I stopped over. So for those of you who don't know, I've been traveling for work. So I'm in Cheyenne. That's where I bought this t-shirt. I don't know if you see the Cheyenne there.
I do see that. That's actually pretty dope.
It's pretty sick, dude. But, so I walked over to the restaurant and bar. And when I was over there, usually it's super dead in there. Like the only people we get out here, man, is a lot of truckers and stuff that pass through. And
yeah, I don't know. Is there like a bunch of people that like vacation in Wyoming? Like, is that even a thing?
So the 17th through the 28th, there's like the world's largest rodeo is happening out here. It's called Frontier Days. Okay. So that's, I think from what I've heard from everybody, that's where they get like 70% of the city's like yearly, economy comes from that festival. But other than that, there's usually not many people out here. It's usually people like doing construction and truckers and stuff like that. So, but anyway, so before we started this, I walked over there. I was just having a nice little drink, and this old, like 70-some-year-old lady sat down next to me, right? And I'm just being polite, really. I was just like, hey, how you doing? Whatever. She sat down right next to me, and it's an open bar. So right off the bat, I'm like, oh, this is kind of whatever.
Wait, hold on, like just to put things in perspective. So like know how like go into the men's bathroom and there's the wall of urinals.
Yes.
Yeah, you see the wall of urinals. Say like there's 5 urinals, okay, and someone's on the far left, right?
Yes, yeah.
You don't go to the urinal directly next to them. You go to what's the correct answer? The furthest away point.
Yeah, or at least pretty far away.
To me, it's the furthest away point, because then if a third party comes into the restroom to use the facilities at the same time, they can go in the middle, and there's still a gap urinal between 3 dudes,
Right.
So this lady didn't follow that logic at all. She obviously doesn't pee standing up. She had no idea about this rule. Okay. That's a normal bar.
Like I said, she's a trucker. I think we were talking about like gas prices or something. So it went from like, she's like, I remember under Reagan when gas prices were like crazy low, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And, but eventually it gets to, then all of a sudden, dude, she hits a switch on me and she starts going real fucking like QAnon crazy. Yeah, dude. And she's like, hey, she's like, Bobby Kennedy Jr., right? And I'm like, yeah, I know. RFK Jr., he's, whatever. And she's like, I did a DNA test. And she's like, I'm not related to any of my siblings or my parents. And someone told me that my bloodline is from someone famous. And she's like, and I'm pretty sure it's Bobby Kennedy Sr., because she's like, I look exactly like Bobby Kennedy Jr. Now, she does not look anything like Bobby Kennedy Jr. So the whole time I'm just like, okay. And then she's like, actually, she's like, it could be Bobby Kennedy Jr. She's like, I also heard that my bloodline, I come from possibly Mick Jagger. She's like, I don't know if you could tell. She's like, I'll put my hair down for you. She's like, can't you? And then she started Googling images of Mick Jagger. She's like, don't you see how me and his hair look exactly alike? And I was like, yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah. And she's like, actually, she's like, I heard there's a possibility I come from the royal family. I think I forget what prince she said, Prince Charles or whatever. She's like, there's a chance.
Yeah.
Prince Charles.
Right. I was just Prince Charming.
Yeah. And she's like, there's actually a small chance that Prince Charles is my father. And I'm like, this is getting pretty crazy. I think I need to exit this conversation. So I kept trying to get out of it. Just like kind of like giving her the like, wow, that's crazy. You know what I mean? And there was another person she added, but then she started getting this whole thing. She's like, I work for this company. She's like, my company knows that I'm from royal bloodline. They just won't tell me. And she's like, I keep getting emails and texts from the FDIC like once every other week, and they say that they have a super hidden special account for me. And she's like, I know they have money for me, and I come from royalty and I'm rich. And she's like, I just don't understand why they just don't come out and straight tell me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, but so I will say, so I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian, and a lot of times on the left, you always hear them talking about like crazy conservatives and QAnon people and stuff like that. And I always knew that was out there, but this lady was the first time I had ever met somebody that was like crazy, but on the right side.
I see. Like the right meaning conservative.
Yeah, conservative, like
Yeah.
right. Left and right.
Right.
Yeah, right. I knew they existed, but at the same time, like, I think she was harmless, but also at the same time, I was like, I need to exit my way out of this conversation. And there was a part of me that was like, I feel like I need to slightly just like, agree with this lady and confirm her delusions, or else she might stab me in the neck with like a fork or a butter knife.
Yeah, well, that's definitely an interesting story. I had a similar story where, I don't go to very many bars, but there's one that's up the street from me, and there's basically the same 12 some odd people in there every time I'm in there, right? I go there maybe like once a week, once every 2 weeks, and they have a happy hour after when I get done with work, and it's like amazing. I think it's like half off drink, so I'll get 2 Long Island, and I'll leave there with $10 on the freaking check, and I put $10 on there as tip or whatever, and just walk out of there happy with $20 and we've got 2 good drinks. Anyway, so I run into this guy who I kind of talk to from time to time, and he always names himself Fish. What do you call it?
Fish.
And I'm like, Fish? Like, that's a weird name. Like, it's this guy like ex-con.
Like the band? Like the band Fish?
No, I don't know. I don't know if it was Fish. So like, well, I'm talking to this guy and he's in the music and stuff, and he was also a Marine.
Okay.
So Marine, he did 2 different tours over in Iraq and Afghanistan.
So maybe some trauma, maybe some trauma in there.
Maybe some trauma. He's also from Texas, so there's probably just natural born trauma that you get out of that state. And then, so also I would say that he like kind of had the people that he hung out with on his side of the bar, I would say, was always the people that were disgusted with Trump, or there's always Fox News that's on the TVs in this place, right? And so like I always kind of assumed that because of the people that he was hanging out with, which were actually 3 women, and 3 larger women, we'll say. So I was like, this guy, like, is he gay? Like, he's always wearing a leather jacket. It's July. It's 91 degrees out. He's wearing a leather jacket. I'm just like, is this
red
guy
flags? Like, some red flags.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. But he's got a man bun too. So it's like, it's throwing me off. And so I get to actually like talking to him for a while, and he's like like I said, an ex-Marine, became a musician. Come to find out, his dad was either the Senate Majority Leader or a congressman who held pretty high status in a position in Congress for the state of Texas for a long time, and his last name was Fisher. And then I like Googled him like right there in front of him, and I was like, no way, dude, that's so crazy. But what's even more crazy is that he was not Republican much really at all, though voted for Trump. This time, and also thinks that his dad was like the best congressman ever to live ever. Like he had nothing but great things to say about his dad, and said that he like never lied and always like he never towed the line for party line.
Well, that's his dad, dude. That's his dad. You gotta ride with the home team, dude. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I get it, but like for him not to have any like kind of like, if I grew up and my dad was Senate Majority Leader in a state that I lived in, and like it's just like I would have some serious angst and resentment against that. I feel, you know what I mean? Like regardless if I'm into politics now, growing up, no one's into politics growing up, dude. If you're into politics growing up, you're an insane person. You know?
I think I started getting into it probably like senior year of high school a little bit, and then slowly got more and more into it. But I will say, like, as a child, if people are saying stuff to you about your dad, if he's a congressman or whatever, you might feel the need to compensate and be like, oh, I don't know. Like, but I know as a grown man now, if my dad had served as something, I would have my dad's back like 100%. And they'd be like, your dad.
But what if he was on the party that you don't currently like
I don't
align?
care.
You know?
I don't, well, I mean, it's kind of hard because all I can think about is my actual current dad. So it's hard to think of my dad in like a different context than him being himself. But like, I just know my dad as himself. Like, I would just fully have his back. Like, no matter what, they'd be like,
what if your dad got us into the Iraq War?
I'd be like, they deserved it. I'd be like, dude, my dad, my dad is like, he's fucking a chill dude. So
what if your dad was Dick Cheney? You know what I mean? You'd be
if my dad, I'd be like, dude, Dick Cheney, that's my dad, and I love him, and he's a beast, dude. You got a problem with him? Like, your dad wasn't fucking vice president.
I know, but what if your dad was Tim Walz? You'd be like,
well, yeah, dude. My dad would never be Tim Walz, because if my dad was Tim Walz, I probably would be like a tranny. Like,
you would
gay lord,
at the least, a hermaphrodite, at least
a super gay lord at the very least.
Be like, I kept my penis, but I wanted a vagina too.
I cut my penis, but only half of it, and it still does the job on dudes.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, that's a pretty crazy story. You got to be careful out there in Wyoming, man.
I know, because you just never know, dude. One time I got an Uber, and he was like a young kid, probably in his early 20s, maybe 22, something like that. But and he was like, I don't know, he gave me weird vibes. You know what I mean? You get that guttural feeling where you're like, I don't know, this person's kind of giving me weird vibes. He'd be like quiet, and like the way he kept leaning back and forth was like kind of freaking me out. And he had like kind of black bags under his eyes, and but he just kept telling me, he's like, you into guns, dude? I'm like, I mean, I believe in guns. I'm not like a super gun guy. And he's like, I build my own guns. He's like, I take them to the shooting range like 3 days a week. He's like, I'm building this gun and this gun. But he was also like he's not the kind of guy that you would expect to be like, I'm into guns. He was like kind of a weird looking young kid. Like,
those are the ones you got to watch out for.
That's what I'm saying. He reminded me, like, his looks were like a mixture of the kid. I forget what his name is, but the one that just tried to assassinate Trump and Butler. He kind of looked like a mixture of like him and maybe like, here's a kid from that Facebook movie, like Jesse Eisenberg. He looked like a mixture. Yeah. Like his like mixture, his looks and demeanor were like a mixture of those two people.
Yeah, serial killer vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, or just like a kid who probably.
A mass shooter. There's never been a mass shooter that's gone into the school or whatever, like church or mosque or whatever, that's ever wore like a USA shirt. None. Zero.
No,
None.
It's always like somebody who's like weird, may have been maybe groomed by like the intelligence agencies, and like seems to always be like a loner, and probably someone who was picked on and kind of a freak.
Yeah, it's always kids that like end up with like they have no job, no car, but they have like a $4,600 assault rifle, and it's like, how are you affording work, man? What are you doing?
And like a bulletproof vest and like
they got tactical boots. They just learned how to make bombs in their spare time. They were like, I got nothing to do on this Tuesday. I'm just gonna learn how to make bombs, And it's like, what? Who is this kid?
But that is something that I do. It's definitely so much different being out here compared to a lot of other places I've been. I've never been to somewhere where like
let's talk about some places that you've been. So you were in was it Alabama or Georgia?
Well, so I spent about a year and a half in Sarasota, Florida. I did work down there. I was about
wild town.
I love Sarasota. It's a beautiful area if you've never been there. I was about 45 minutes northwest of Atlanta in a place called Canton, where I used to have to go to Atlanta all the time for like the airport and whatever. I spent some time in what other ones did I do? Well, West Virginia. I spent some time in Alabama because that's our home office. So I've been down there.
Right. I was in Pennsylvania. You did Pennsylvania, obviously.
Pennsylvania. I did Marietta, Georgia, which was like a small cemetery there. And now I'm in Cheyenne.
And you work on the veteran cemeteries, is what you're.
Well, so my company does government contracts, and they do national cemeteries, they do VA hospitals, and they do military bases. Specifically, the two main military bases where they have like constant contracts is at Fort Bragg, which I've been to Fort Bragg for a while to do classes and things down there that I had to do to get the promotion that I got. And then Fort Benning, which is in like South Georgia. Those are like the two military. So those are the two main military bases we have work at. But also I've been, places just visiting and for vacation. Like me and you, we went to Vegas for, for my wedding. Like I've been, I've been around, but like this is the first place I've been where it's like you're like out in the country. You know what I mean?
Yeah, see, like I haven't really experienced that. Like I want to experience kind of like where you're at. I feel like if you drive 30 minutes at max outside of where you're at right
Oh,
now,
there's nothing.
you're
There's
going to
nothing.
see beautiful stars above you and no cell reception. Maybe you do. I don't know, because there's satellites all everywhere from Starlink. Regardless, it's
Yeah.
like it's a remote area. Like I went out west, and like the furthest I've been west was Vegas when I went for your wedding. And then other than that, I really haven't been out there. I mean, we're close to West Virginia. There's definitely some places in West Virginia where there's no cell phone reception. There's people that actually have like a negative reaction, I think, to the radiation that comes off of cell towers. And there's people that like have a community where they congregate in this portion of West Virginia to be away from all cell phone towers, and they like feel like so much better, they say, and all this stuff. They're also probably a bunch of hippies.
You never know. I mean, some of that stuff, you never know what to. I catch myself doing that stuff sometimes, whether it be like, I'm outside of the city. Do I feel any different? Or, if I'm like, people say like, you should use your cell phone less. And like, when you do use it, you should use it on speakerphone and keep it like 2 feet away from you.
Yeah, I think RFK actually preaches about that with like EMFs and all that kind of stuff. And I remember even back in the day, there was this kid named Matt we went to high school with. He was a grade above us. I don't want to say his last name because
I think I know who you're talking about.
But so he actually on his thigh where he would keep his cell phone, he would keep it in the same left pocket every time. He told me this, and he's a hairy dude. Like he's got some hair, and you could see like he's Chewbacca from the ankles up and toes up. And then he showed me the spot on his thigh. There was no hair where his cell phone always stayed. So like, I don't know if wouldn't that be crazy if that's what's like making like the modern man's hair fall out is cell phone usage. It's making people's hair fall out.
Well, and me and you both have young children.
Mm-hmm.
I have my son, you have your daughter. And so raising a child, like you start thinking about all these different things, whether it be, because I hear so many conspiracy theories. I'm like, is it vaccines that are doing things like causing autism and nonverbal behavior and all this stuff? Is it the microplastics in our water? Some people say it's from the leftover birth control from women that they pee out, and our filtration systems for our water systems like aren't enough to filter that, and that's getting into all of our systems and lowering our fertility rates. And then you start thinking of stuff like that. Like, is it the cell phones? Is it the towers? Is it the 5G? Is it, it's just like, it's like a never ending thing where, you're constantly worried, trying to do the best for your child. But at the same time, it's like, you can't fix everything. You can't shield them from everything. So it's like kind of finding that line of like, okay, like I'm going to get my son some vaccines. Which ones am I going to get him? How long am I going to wait to get him? Or whatever, or, how old should I wait for my son to let him use a cell phone or whatever?
Those are all questions. Yeah, I mean, like, so like where I always thought of like growing up as a kid and like thinking of myself as a future father one day, I was always like, oh yeah, I'm going to protect my kids from like the bad people, like this like idea of like, oh, there's going to be somebody who's going to come by and like bully her or offer her candy out of a shady van or like stuff that like, never really too much happens. Well, like what the real things that you need to protect them from is like crazy things like sunscreen. Like you like find out that there's all these crazy chemicals in sunscreen and that it's actually causing the skin cancer as opposed to sun. And it's like, I'm not prepared for this, man. So now I have to be a sunscreen expert and I have to like be a chemist to understand like the chemicals that are going into sunscreen to protect my daughter. It's like, it's absolutely nuts, man.
And not just that, but it's like, how much of that stuff do I believe? Because like, I get all these different videos. It's like, you 100,000% have parasites in your body. You need a detox from parasites. Take this. It's just like never ending of like, this is what's wrong with you. You got to do this or else you're going to have autism and die or whatever, dude. Like it's just so much. So it's like,
hey, get that radiation closer to your mouth, that mic.
This mic don't
get that closer to your mouth. Can you?
Dude,
No? I want your mouth to get some cancer. Come on.
Don't say that, dude. But I've been using these headsets forever for gaming and stuff, and I never had any issues. But
yeah.
But then again, dude,
Sound
like I
you're on
said,
a kill streak right now.
no, but that does get to a point of where it's like, how much of our lives is like, obviously we do have control over it, and there's things that we're expected to do, but then how much of our life is destiny in a sort of way where it's like that, no matter what you do, that was just the way it was supposed to happen, or that was the way you were supposed to go out, or whatever. You know what I mean?
I know,
Like
man, but like I think about it and I'm like, did destiny have in the cards that a man living in New Jersey, say, in modern day time, ended up ingesting too much plastic, which created androgynous estrogens to then affect his sperm counts. And so now his lineage, his legacy of his family, genetically, within the community, whatever it is,
Yeah.
like that's taken away. That person that may have been an awesome person that could have been a pillar of the community is now no longer going to be around because of androgynous estrogens from plastic pollutant. I mean, it's gotta get the juicy in there, the loosey.
No, I hear you. So I don't know.
Hey, speaking of
Anyways,
which, I thought that they were DEI now and that you have to do the Tucker Carlson Alps. I heard that's the thing.
is it the Alps? I don't know, dude. If they
I heard
give me
Zen's woke, dude. That's what I heard.
I don't know. I don't really follow that stuff that much, but I will say that I've tried. So I quit smoking cigarettes, I don't know, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago now. But then I started vaping, and then I stopped vaping and went to nicotine pouches about 2 months before my son was born. So it's about a year now since I quit smoking. And I've tried all the different nicotine pouches. I've tried the nicotine lozenges from CVS and all that. I've tried, I forget, there's like there's ones called Chill. There's ones called Rogue. There's ones
Yeah, I know
called
you gave
On.
me some back when we were in Vegas for your wedding, and they tasted like crap, and I ended up vaping on the plane. So
Yes, so I've done them all.
stew me,
But I will. How dare you? You should never rat yourself out like that,
dude. Spirit, they're falling out of the sky every 2 seconds. They don't even know what they're doing, dude.
But I will say I never tried the Alps. Is that the ones that Tucker supports?
Yeah. Tucker, I think it's Tucker's brand that he's trying to put.
Yeah, I've never tried that one, but I will say of all the other ones I've gotten at the gas station and stuff, the Zins.
I know, and speaking of things that like were from our youth that like you need to protect your children from and all this kind of stuff. Cigarettes being the big one. And cigarettes took nicotine, right? In its purest form. It's like it's a normal thing, right? Like it grows out of the ground and people smoke it. Yeah. It's been a thing that people of our kind have done for generations, right?
Yeah, there's like all kinds of plants that actually contain nicotine. I think that it's like tomatoes. There's like all kinds.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they all have like low doses of it, but like obviously tobacco has probably the highest, if not the highest, one of the highest.
I think so.
And so, but now the research that I'm like kind of like been following is that nicotine itself is like a good drug to use in terms of like alertness. It helps you cerebrally,
Yeah.
All these kind of different things. So it's like, it's interesting that when it's not tied to the vehicle and how it's like entered into your system, along with all those rat poisons and all that kind of stuff, that it's like, it's something that's probably not terrible for you, at least in the grand scheme of things. Like alcohol is probably way worse, mind altering substances are way worse. Nicotine's pretty minimal.
So I talk to my wife about this all the time because she's not really on me about it, but she's just asked me like, hey, are you ever going to quit the nicotine? And I told her, so like, I've seen doctors, whether it be on Joe Rogan and a few other podcasts, and they're respectable doctors. They're not just some like random guys, but they've talked about the benefits of nicotine. And, some of them said like, basically the only real downside, if you're just straight doing like nicotine pouches, especially like not even smoking it and inhaling it, it's just the addictive properties. Other than that, for basically men and they're like mid to late 30s and above, a lot of men should be taking supplements because it helps prevent degenerative brain diseases. It helps raise your testosterone, helps you focus, like you said, be more alert, things like that. So there's like way more benefits to taking it than not, really, as you get older as a man.
But I
I
just
don't
like
know.
wonder like what the application is best to use as a vehicle to enter your body. What does nicotine even look like? I don't even know, dude. Is it a powder? Is it a sap? Like I have no idea what nicotine in its purest form looks like. Do you?
Well, I would have just, I don't know. I just always imagine like,
Can we pull
it's
it up? Let's pull it up. What's nicotine look like in its natural state? Let's see what it looks
okay,
like.
hold on.
Because I would
I don't even
imagine
know.
like it's not a liquid, right? Like tobacco plants when they come out of the ground, I'm pretty sure they pick them and then they dry them. There's the
Yeah.
leaves, right? So there's these
So
leaves. I would imagine they pulverize them. I don't know.
I'll share
Let's
my screen. So this is what I first did. So it says, what does nicotine look like? That's all I could think of really to put in. So just the overall AI overview says nicotine is a colorless. Nicotine is a colorless to yellow brown oily liquid. It's typically found in its pure form as a viscous, sticky substance. When diluted in water, it appears as a clear solution in commercially available products such as nicotine patches or e-liquids. Nicotine may be colored or have a different appearance depending on the added ingredients. I could do a quick images here. Those look like Zins to me right there, brother.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's its natural form though. Like
no, that's straight cigarettes.
Just what did you type in before?
I just in natural form.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like basically, I think of nicotine.
I don't know if that first picture is an image or not. It looks like it's a crystalline substance.
It just looks like somebody poured tobacco out of a cigarette on that.
It looks like somebody had an accident all over in a line. Like they like how the dogs rub their butt on carpets. That's all like the aftermath of that.
But basically, when I think of nicotine, I just think of it as the same as in the same way as THC to like marijuana, whereas like it's just like a chemical.
Like you can see it. Like when you pick up a bud, you can see all the little like crystals that are on it, and that's where the THC is laying in those crystals on top of the on top of like material, like the biological material. So
yeah, but also,
where's that?
But they have like THC liquid, just the same way as they have like
they just melt those crystals down into a solution, like a saline solution or whatever, and like so they do the same thing with tobacco. But like how do they not have a picture of like what tobacco like nicotine looks like? Not tobacco.
This just says, I don't know about this, but this just says nicotine. It just says here, it says synthetic, naturally derived, tobacco-free, TFN, tobacco leaf-free.
Which is very odd. Like, I wonder if they press the leaves and then it extracts that sap or oil or whatever they're talking about. Like,
here it says, what is nicotine? Occurs naturally and can be found in tobacco plants. Not the primary cause of smoking-related disease. Addictive and not risk-free. All right. So, anyways, I don't know.
I don't know about all this nicotine stuff, but like what I do know is that again, like there's all these things that like we have to be fearful for our children that like our parents never had to deal with. Dude, I was just having a conversation with my dad the other day, and I was like, "Hey, man," I was like, whenever I was Lily's age or even a little older, that's my daughter's name, and she's 15 months. So I don't know, like the way I was asking my dad about it was just like, you ever feel like concern whenever you were like raising like me? Like, were you worried about political actions, geopolitical actions, warfare, the food that I was eating, the chemicals I was being exposed to, the way the schools were teaching me, all of these different medications being introduced, like all these kind of things. And he didn't have a care in the world, man. This is back in the 90s. I'm born in the 90s, so like I feel like the 90s was the time where times were good. I don't know. We were kids, but like I don't know. How did you like? Did you ever ask your parents how they now that you have kids? Like, do you talk to them and be like, hey, man, like what was it like for you? Because this is what I'm going through.
I haven't asked them specifically about that, but like I've talked to them about certain things, and they've always just said, well, we just did the best we could, and it's also different a little bit because like I had 3 siblings, so there was 4 of us. So I can only imagine like if you have 4 kids, like I couldn't imagine having that anxiety.
Themselves, right? Like they kind of
and like also like how efficient could it be to be a parent if you're having like that much like worry and anxiety and trying to do all this thing with 4 kids, like that would, I mean, that would just take up your whole life. So, you know, part of me is like, and like I said, I try to do the best I can with my son and try to worry about the things that I put, you know, priority on. Like, this is something I feel like is important or whatever. But at the same time, you know, I'm a Christian and I have faith that God like has the best in mind for me and my son and my family, especially as long as like, you know, we're all trying to do our best and do the right thing. Like, I think for the most part, you know, he'll make sure we're okay at the end of the day. You know, that's like the best I can come up with as far as like a worldview for my family, you know?
Yeah, maybe I'm like anointed about it. Maybe I'm like being like a little bit too crazy or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to be a helicopter parent, and I don't think that I
Yeah.
am.
Right. It's hard not to though. It's hard not to be
Well,
honest. It's
yeah, I
hard.
mean, well, again, like my daughter's 15 months, so
Yeah.
it's a little different, you know. She might
Right.
fall and crack her head open at any point because she's
Right.
so wobbly and uncoordinated. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, at least she's able to hold her head up. She's not like
Yeah.
Kevin Hart's fucking kid.
No.
Sorry, you were gonna say something.
No, I was gonna say like even with like my son, like, you know, when he sometimes he starts crying hysterically and they're so young. My son's 10 months, a little over 10 months now, and it's just like you don't know what's going on. It's like, is it because of he's teething? Is he sick? Is there something wrong? Did he hurt himself? Like, you just, so like you'll drive yourself insane constantly worrying about this stuff. And as much as I know that, my natural instinct is to constantly worry, like, is this something wrong with him? Like, is he okay? Do I need to whatever? But then I have to like constantly reassure myself, like, he's fine. You know, God has you in his hands. Like, anything that, if there's anything that's wrong, like, we'll figure it out. He's going to be okay. Like, don't have all this worry and anxiety because, like, you can do the best you can do, but a lot of it's out of your hands.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's
you know,
true. I mean, a lot of it is out of your hands. I can't imagine having 7 kids or something like that.
well, not just that, dude, but like I look at like old documentaries and things like that, and it's like, yeah, this person, like they had 12 kids or whatever, and it's like 2 of your kids would just like die from the flu.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would just like be like a chip on the parent's shoulder. Like, yeah, we had 2 that didn't make
That
it.
passed.
And it was just like normal. It was just like, yeah, you know, it was like a dog dying. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
we lost Rusty, you know?
And me and Ashley, she loves reality TV shows, and I watched this one with her that I like. It's called Plathville. I don't know if you've ever seen Plathville.
Dude, there's so
But
many reality shows that I can't keep up. But Plathville is definitely not one I've ever heard of.
I forget what network it's on or whatever, but these are like kids that were born and raised in like a super conservative, like Christian family, but then their parents are now getting divorced and like they're being introduced to like super modern stuff, whatever. But like they have a brother who died. He was like one of the youngest ones. And I think there's like 8 or 9 or 10 siblings. But the one son, the mother, I guess, was like packing all the kids up to like get in the car to do what. And I mean, yeah, you have that many kids. It's kind of hard to keep track of all of them, dude. And she accidentally backed over the one son who was like 2 years old and killed him, dude. And this happened. I forget. I don't know. This happened maybe like 10 years ago or whatever. But they refer back to this incident several times throughout the show. And I just like, I don't know, stuff like that is just like, that is so horrific. I couldn't even imagine, like, even if I had 8 kids. Like, could you imagine that? Like, your kid died from like the flu or from, you know, the plague back in the day, or like you, or something, like you accidentally like backed over your own kid or something like that. I mean, that's just like, I don't know. Like, I'm not built for that, dude. I
Like
consider,
anything is, but you know what? Every time that I've ever had a conversation with like one of those kind of people that ever like had it, or like you know, like through like a third person like view of it, of watching somebody have that conversation with a parent that lost a child, they always have the same reaction where they're just like, you know, like, yeah, I don't know what happened, you know, like it's a terrible thing to happen, and like they just seem to like get over it. And like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing that they get over it or anything like that, but
yeah, like you kind of have to some extent to like continue life. Like you have to, like, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. Like I said, it's such a horrific thing, and like you said, I couldn't imagine the burden of that, and having so many kids, because like back in the day, like you said, like you almost, if you had like 8, 9, 10, 11 kids, like it was almost a given, like, hey, I'm gonna lose 1 or 2 or 3 of my kids. It was like a given, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, even like through statistics, you'd probably have to like have some kind of an idea of that, right? I mean, especially
Mhm.
back in the day. Like, I'm not talking about modern day. Like, how many kids or how many parents, are having 7 kids today? Literally none, because they
Not
can't afford.
no. Well, some like I know some families that were like
Were
Mormon
they
and
Mormon?
Jehovah's Witness. Yeah, Mormons and like Jehovah's Witness and the blacks. They maybe not
I
maybe
don't want to bring up entitlement programs, but
but I mean maybe not like 8 or 9 kids, but certainly it seems like a lot of the minority groups, whether it be like blacks or some of the Arab and different communities, it seems like they have kids more than, but also, well, not so much the blacks, but like the Arabs and a lot of these like migrants and refugees and stuff that come here from like or like some of the bad parts of South America and stuff. It's like, they have all those kids because, like I said, in their country, it's not absurd to lose a few children.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
kind of
also, I would imagine that like it. I think there's like some kind of big hubbub about this, and correct me on it if I'm not getting it right, but I think there's something with natural born citizenship in this country and birthright citizenship that's currently going on that's in contention. And it's
yeah,
like, all these immigrants who come here, like if an immigrant comes here illegally and then somebody's born, are they a U.S. citizen?
right. Let's see.
I
I'm
don't
gonna.
know all the ins and outs of it, but it's like I would imagine that if I was an immigrant of a war-torn country or whatever, fled to America illegally, and then was like, I want my child to be okay, then I would probably want to have them be born here so that they can get birthright citizenship. And I think that there's something currently in the news about it.
Yeah. Well,
I
let
don't.
me just bring something up real quick
Yeah,
because
hold up.
this is something that people go back and forth a lot on, and a lot of people sometimes are mad at Trump and his administration because they're like, this is part of the Constitution. How could they even try to remove the fact that if you're born here, you're a citizen? But for many of you who don't know this, I did go to school for political science and constitutional law, and I do remember us talking about this even back in the day. But can you see what I brought up here on
Me
the
and you
screen?
talked about this.
So basically, the
Is
main
that what you
concept.
said? Me and you? That you said me and you talked about this?
I think me and you talked about this, but I've also talked about this like back in the day in like college.
Yeah,
I
well,
remember us.
I didn't have any opinion on anything back in the day. So even if I did, it probably wasn't good. It probably wasn't a good opinion. But let's hear it now. What's
Well,
going
let
on?
me see if I can get a good image of it here without it asking me for all this to sign up for this and that, whatever. Let me see. I'll try to get to it. Sorry for any of you who are still with us here. Trying to get this to come
Well,
up.
even still, okay. So what's your opinion on it? Like, while it's
Okay, so
loading.
well, here is the amendment. Okay, this is the 14th Amendment. It says, so here's the exact writing in the Constitution. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So the biggest constitutional question here is, and this is the question that it comes down to for constitutional scholars. So where it says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So many constitutional scholars say like this amendment was created so that the children of slaves would be naturalized to become citizens of the U.S. This was never meant to refer to foreigners who just basically cross our border, have a child, whatever. And their argument is in this Constitution, in this amendment, where it says all persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So they're basically saying, well, if a person crosses our border from Mexico, from Canada, wherever, they're not technically subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's why a lot of countries have extradition laws where it's like, if you get in trouble for something in another country, it's not our right or our duty to punish them. They're not subject to the jurisdiction of this country. They're subject to the jurisdiction of wherever they come from.
So then, therefore, by by that interpretation, you would say that they
Yes.
lose the provisions that are continued in that.
Like someone just flies, right? Someone flies over here from Italy for vacation and have a child, or if they come up from Colombia to our border just to give birth, they're not technically subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, so therefore their child wouldn't be a citizen of the U.S. That is, I'm not saying which side's right, which side's wrong. I'm just saying that is the constitutional argument there.
What's so interesting about all, everything that's written in the Constitution, yeah, there's some stuff that's pretty black and white, but a lot of it is written in a way where there's a lot of interpretation.
Right. And that's what we have. I'm sorry. I would say that, and that's the whole idea of the Supreme Court, is to settle those disputes.
Right. And it's always like, what's also interesting about it is that, like, so that there's a current regime of a Supreme Court justices, right? Say, like, whatever, in the 1890s or something, or in 1900.
Whatever.
Like, based on the people of that time, and that Supreme Court's decision follows as precedent for future generations.
Yes.
But the future generations could not be potentially in the same predicament as that last precedent.
Correct.
And so it's always just so interesting how, like, there's the interpretation of the text rather than the actual text itself, like, giving the answer. Never definitely said this is how this. I mean, they do in certain
right.
A lot of time the verbiage that's used, it's like this legalese, like early English style, old English style kind of verbiage, and it's like very open to interpretation. So it's just like interesting.
And you get even more into that when you start to get down to things like the amendments and the Constitution, because there's so many like weird legal things here and there. But like that really is for any text. If you think about like any important text throughout time, there's always, whether it be the Bible or whatever, there's always people that are going to have certain interpretations of what exactly do these words mean. You know what I mean? So it is hard. And all you can really do is hope that the side that you either agree with or more so agree with is the side that comes out on top in those interpretations.
So to bring it back, in terms of the birthright citizenship thing, I would say that I don't know. I would imagine that Trump is on the side of getting rid of birthright citizenship, correct? And that's like the contentious issue, and it may have gotten blocked by a judge somewhere, probably in Texas or somewhere, who knows? But,
or California or New York.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but there's some weird judges down in Texas that do stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
And they get appointed, and they're Democrat in a certain jurisdiction or something. But I don't know how I feel about it, man, because like it's always like you got to put yourself into the shoes of the person like that's running away from this craziness, right? Like you're in Venezuela, you're surrounded by all these gangs and stuff. And I'm not saying the right answer is to come in illegally into the United States. I don't think that's the right answer at all. But, for some of these people, what they're feeling maybe might be a life or death situation. And it's like, hey, like if I can just get into the United States, I can at least have a chance at something maybe good happening. And what's the worst that could happen? I just get thrown out. And it's like, so I kind of get their side on it. I don't agree with it. But like I when it comes to the birthright part, though, it's also how much we love our kids, right?
Yeah.
How we feel about them, and it's like, your mom may have been illegal and did this illegal act of crossing a border and getting in there, but then there's this child, right? And it's like, what do you do with that? That's tough, man.
Yeah, well, there's several ways I look at it. And depending on how I feel when I wake up in the morning, I look at things differently every day. I mean, that is part of being human, is like sometimes we're self-righteous. Sometimes we are sympathetic and empathetic. Sometimes we are hypocritical. We're all humans, you know what I mean? But I always try to look at it from other people's point of views. But, well, for one, I always remind myself that like the international definition of a refugee, you have to go to the country that's closest to you's border that would provide you safety from whatever you're running from. So like a lot of these people that are coming up from like Colombia or like Guatemala or whatever like that, like you technically are not a refugee because you're not going to the closest country of borders that would be safe for you then I look at it from a father's point of view, and I'm like, if I was in a country where I'm worried about, all this gang violence and cartel violence and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, like I would like to hope that I would be able to go to a safer country to keep my child safe and give them a better life. But then you also have to look at it like, what about our forefathers, dude? Like, our forefathers also were probably in a predicament here in the United States, like when they're fighting the British, where it's like, it would be so much easier to run somewhere south or north and, whatever, to get out of that fight. But at the same time, it's like, as a man, also, there's a certain point in time where you have to stand up and fight for your country and not rely on other people to fix your problems, but you have to do something yourself to help fix it too.
Well, that's always been the argument, right, too, is like when it comes to like immigration and stuff, it's like the idea was that we wanted the best and brightest minds of like whatever nation, right, was trying to immigrate. Yes. Yeah. And through a legal process of them coming and, like doing whatever the trials and tribulations are to become a citizen.
Right.
And those people that were the best in their country were running away from their country. So those kind of best people, the pillars of community that country could have needed, then ended up uprooting and just like abandoning their natural born place of citizenship,
right,
their country, their people, their culture, all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, I try to put myself in the shoes of like, if something terribly happened and drastically happened here in the United States, like let's say like some communist and figure came in, gained power, people were behind it, I was completely dissatisfied, felt that my family was in danger, that my livelihood was in danger. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to stay and fight for this idea of America and fight the bad guys that are in power that I know that I have no chance in fighting against? But maybe in powers and numbers, yes, you could fight it.
Maybe.
Right. Or do I flee the country and go somewhere else, right? And then whenever I go to another country, where am I supposed to go? A neighboring country would be the legal refugee status for me, right?
So
I don't know about you, man, but like, I don't really want to go to Canada. I think they're on a better or worse journey
path than us. On a path that is going faster downward than even us, as far as like authoritarianism.
And then Mexico, I'll be honest, like I've been to Mexico, like I've been to Cancun, and like I remember being there, like as a very young kid, I was like 9 or 10, and they were just all like, the whole thing was like, do not leave the resort. Do not leave the resort.
Yeah, they'll kill you and like steal your organs.
But I also know a bunch of like people that go down to like Tijuana and get like stem cells and all this kind of stuff, and they're fine. Like everything's fine, everything's all honky dory. Sure, it's the people that you're around, the places in, and all that kind of stuff, and bad things could potentially happen to you. But I don't know. But in the other case, it's still a big question mark.
It's so many questions. I don't think I want
to go to Mexico either. So then, where am I supposed to go? Like, because the places that I would want to go, I would not get refugee status, like Switzerland or I don't know, Singapore, or like wherever. Like it could be somewhere where I know that there's a civilization that's like pretty tame and they don't murder their citizenry.
Right.
Like, so it's just like kind of the same thing for those people that are in Venezuela or anything else. Like I'm not saying that it's right. But
and
like,
also,
you try to put yourself in other people's shoes.
Right. And also you have to think like a couple points here. Like one, like a lot of those guys with their family are fleeing because they're in a rival gang to another gang in that country. So it's like, how much of that is really you putting yourself in that terrible situation? And like, how can you expect everybody else to bail you out because you're a gang member who's being threatened by another rival gang, and then now all of a sudden you're scared for your family? So you have
I mean, that's also things too, though, dude. Like imagine like growing up and your dad's in a gang, your uncle's in a gang, your brother's in the gang. Where do you think you're gonna end up?
Well, you shouldn't, but I mean,
you know what I mean? Like you're doing like what's in your culture, like you're doing what what's around you. Like what's around us is like we're in suburbia, you know what I mean? So like we have a completely different idea of like what normal life is, but when you're born into it, and then you're like, then you have the realization, you get the awake moment, like just like for all of us that like we're so asleep for so long, and then like come to understand that like things aren't as they seem, right? And that kid has that moment, and then he's like, you know what, dude, like maybe I should just go to America. Like I've seen some movies, they look pretty cool there, and then they like come up here, so it's like I'm not trying to make the argument for that. I'm trying to be devil's advocate in this conversation.
Right. No,
like,
and it's like Yeah, I get it, dude. And like I mean, like me and you both came, I wouldn't say like obviously we didn't come from like gangs or anything like that, but we grew up in an environment where like complete like alcoholism and like and doing drugs and stuff was normal for all the people we grew up with.
Yeah.
And you know
Yeah,
what I mean? But
I mean, my family, like my immediate family, not so much, but like, yeah, definitely, it was definitely the people that I was surrounding myself with. Yeah, it was not a good thing.
same thing with gangs. Like a lot of these kids grow up in like these cities or whatever, and they grow up with people who are in gangs. And it's like at some certain point, like, yeah, I understand you grew up in that environment, but as you start to become a man or a woman, like you have to take that upon yourself to get yourself out of that situation.
Right. Right. But
You know what I mean?
I totally agree.
It's hard, dude. I know. It's hard. It's
Somewhat
such
of a
a,
believer in the pulling yourself up from the bootstraps kind of a guy.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
somewhat of a believer of that. But I also know the cards are so stacked against most people. Most people, the cards are stacked so high against you, and we're all just trying to like get
Do
through
our
life.
best.
You know what
I
I mean?
will I will forever believe this. And I know it is a different on a different difficulty setting for everybody based on how you grew up and where you're from. But I guarantee you, if you put your head down and you work hard and you mind your own business and you stay out of trouble, you're going to do fine. I believe that.
Agree with you on that until you're in an artisanal mine in Congo, and then like all you're doing is mining copper with a pick all day with your child hanging off your back. And it's like, I don't really see a light at the end of the tunnel.
But here's
I mean,
the other issue. But here's the issue.
I
with
also don't
that.
think there's a bunch of Congolese that are coming into America. It's illegal.
But dude, but it's so hard to deal with that kind of stuff that you're talking about because a lot of those countries were originally occupied by like Western civilizations, whether it be like Spain or England or France or whatever. And they had brought some sort of like civilization and society to that area. And then as soon as those people wanted independence and like Western civilization kind of let them have their independence, those countries become worse and crumble. So it's like, I don't know how much, obviously for the children, because a child is just a child. I always have sympathy for like the children. Like me and you go back and forth a lot of times arguing about like Israel and Palestine and stuff like that. And like no matter what, I always have sympathy for the children because a child is just innocent and has at that point in time nothing to do with what's going on.
Yeah, like I don't want a Palestinian or an Israeli child to have any turmoil in their lives. I don't want either.
Right. Right. But at the same time, it's so hard to change a society from who they are and what their customs are and all these bad behaviors that are ingrained within their society that are causing a lot of that havoc and pain for those people. Because I know you're not an interventionist.
Do you think the havoc and pain from the Congolese was imparted on themselves? Like, do you think the Congolese were hanging out? Okay, before the mines and industrialization came in from the West.
Yeah.
Do you think that Congolese were just a group of savages that like didn't have any kind of anything going on, and they were
I don't know if
fucking each other and all this kind of like I can't perceive that as happening. I feel like there was some kind of like community, some kind of culture there. And then Western values came in and were placed upon the people, and then they were used as slave labor. And now they're in the predicament that they're in because,
I don't think so.
Hey, like this is the only way we can make a few bucks because otherwise, like farming and stuff. But there's like these local Congolese mafias, and they just come and steal all our props and like. I'm sure it's bad all the way around, but like.
Yeah, I don't think so, dude. Because like if you listen to a lot of people from the area, so like when Western civilization was over there, like we created things like rail systems and hospitals and schools and stuff like that. And then you talk to these people. I've seen a few different YouTube videos about it, but the people over there, they don't even have a word in their language for things like maintenance and upkeep. So,
I saw that. I think you're talking about, I think it was a Mr. Beast.
Oh yeah! Oh, they talked about all those wells that he spent
all the wells that Mr.
millions
Beast
of dollars
funded. They didn't upkeep them because like you're saying they didn't have like a maintenance term in their language. So like it was just like something that's like everything's fleeting there to them because they're in a more biological realm. You know what I mean? They're not dealing with stuff that's steel and concrete and all that kind of stuff.
But still, like maintenance is like I don't know. That could be a very universal, item that people should should understand and take care of, but they don't have that in their culture. But I don't know, like, I'm not a historian, but I've listened to a lot of different historians, and they talk about like when all the people from Europe, started to conquer the Americas, like they came over here and like, yeah, they killed some people. Also, a lot of people died from diseases and things like that. But when they came over here, people were appalled at what they were seeing. They were seeing human sacrifice. They were seeing just completely unnecessary wars between the tribes in America. They were seeing incest. They were seeing voodoo and witchcraft and all this stuff. They came over here, and it's like, I don't know, in a way, people always talk about like, oh, this was stolen by the Europeans and colonized and stuff, but at the same time, it's like, why wouldn't you want it to be? If I don't want to say white man, because it's not just white man, because there's a lot of Spaniards and whatever, a lot of people that came over here.
I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like,
you've seen the movie Avatar, right?
yes.
Okay, so there's like an example, a representation of the Europeans coming to a foreign land.
Yes.
And this foreign land has
also, it's a movie. Let's be clear, it's a movie, and it's from Hollywood. So I take that
totally. But the sentiment still remains. The sentiment is that there's a culture to these people that's very old, and they have these very important relics that are very important to their culture. And then we come in and we're like, hey, you can make a lot of money off that that very important thing in your culture, and then we exploit it. And then they are made out to look like the people that are like, not respecting of us, that we're like trying to like come in and like help them make all this money off of their religious or whatever, their relic, their whatever's important to them that they have. It's kind of the same thing that I would say that probably happens in other countries. I do not think that every Western brigade that has gone through some third world country is us like hoisting a flag of amazingness that we're coming in to save the town and save the country. I think a lot of times there's pushback from the original culture of that area, and they just go like, hey, and like, we're doing things like this.
Yeah.
And
well, let me just say,
coming from a guy who's not a leftist, but
let me say something. Let me say something.
Don't you turn into Clint Eastwood over here on me.
Let me say something. You ever come across a guy every once in a while that you just know that maybe I shouldn't have fucked with? But let me just say, give me one example of a country or a territory or whatever that since Western civilization left it, like a lot of those territories, whether it be like, I don't know, like a lot of parts of like North Africa, even South Africa at this point used to be a British colony. And then they got their independence, whether it be what's the Hong Kong. That was a British territory, I believe, for a while. Give me one territory like that was conquered and then they were given their independence, especially like in Africa and the East and Asia, that since the Western civilizations left, they've gotten better. I can't think of any.
I think it's kind of the way you're framing the question. I mean, you're trying to saying like, so hey, like there was these people, they were doing their thing, then Western civilization came in and parted it. Yeah. Western plays on that culture and then left the culture predominantly and only has like a small residual presence there to kind of upkeep it. I don't know. It's a weird question. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I could give an example because like I couldn't tell you many places that we haven't touched either. I don't know. Like how many places do you think that like the U.S. hasn't tried to spread Western values?
Well, I think in our lifetime, like a lot of the times, especially like in those Muslim countries in the East that we've tried to spread our values to has definitely not worked out well. But I would say at least like before our lifetime, even like in the, I don't know, 70s and 80s, I think you think of like the Korean War and Vietnam and stuff like that. That's kind of iffy. But I would say like back in the ancient days, well, I don't know, ancient's a strong word, but like back in, the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, when a lot of the European countries were sailing and finding these territories and conquering them and things like that. I would say for the most part that was beneficial to those countries. And let me bring this for you to think about. So I listened to an evolutionary scientist talk about how, so it's not so much a white people thing, but it is certainly a cold weather thing. And for whatever reason, it seems like white people come from like colder regions, up in, Europe. Okay. So, and colder, especially back in the day, like way back in the day, our ancestors were much more reliant on a very cohesive society that relied on one another, because when a cold, harsh winter came, everybody had to do their part in that society for everybody to survive that winter. Like whether your job was to harvest or to get animal skins or to help build shelters or whatever, everybody had to do their part and work together as a civilization for that civilization to survive. So that's why a lot of evolutionary scientists that I've heard talk about it say, like, a lot of these other countries, especially like whether, a lot of times in like more tropical areas like Africa and some of the islands and stuff, you didn't really, South America, like you didn't really have to rely on a cohesive society all depending on one another to survive, because like most of the year, everything's tropical. You could kind of just forage for fruits, and small animals and things are always available to you. So in a lot of ways, even though it's a kind of a Western civilization, part of their identity as a civilization, like a lot of people sometimes get into race theory where it's like, well, it's because you're white and this and that. Well, it's not really so much that. It's just that our people had to depend on that to survive harsh winters.
Let me see if I'm getting what you're trying to say down. So
Yeah,
you're saying that because of our predecessors in times past,
yes,
predominantly the people that were in the northern regions where there was more of a Antarctic kind of snow,
harsh winters, really harsh winters,
winter kind of region, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that those people that were in those regions tended to band together to create a tighter community because they needed one another to handle certain duties for the entirety of that community to survive. Okay, so you're saying that's going on with them. Now in juxtaposition, you're saying that there are these tribes that are in, we'll say the Amazon. But these tribes, like, they don't need to be as big. They're kind of more small number or lone people, and therefore like they're more reliant on just themselves, so they're not like reliant into like this community. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're trying to say that in translation into today, that's still a residual thing that's happening where like
it could be
people tend to be more having each other's backs because of those experiences in the past, whereas like people in these regions where their melanin's going to be darker around their skin,
yes,
that they have a tendency towards more fight for yourself kind of.
Yeah, they were given more time. Really, it's more downtime, more idle time, which led to more things like warring within tribes and things like that. As compared, I mean, you still had that up in the northern regions, like with the Vikings and all this stuff. But for the most part, like society had to band together, and people had to rely on each other, and therefore you had to trust one another to make it through things like harsh winters and things like that. Whereas you didn't have that so much in societies like, closer to the
Well, I don't know, man. I can see where your argument is in that, but you know what? The thing that I don't like about it is that the left would tear it apart. The left would just be like, dude, you are so racist. You know what I mean?
Like I know I'm not. Look,
and I know that you're not meaning it to come off as that, and like I don't mean it to either. But like I kind of see your point. I get it.
And that's not to say that, but I also am a Christian, so I believe every man and every woman is in many ways a master of their own destiny, as in like whatever you want to be, however you want to be, whoever you want to be, you can do that through the strength of the Lord. And you, like, so like I don't believe in race theory in that way, but I do think I think anybody would be crazy to deny that there aren't differences within the races, and those are things that we need to talk about and come to agreements about, and you shouldn't be ashamed to talk about things where it's like, hey, like here's some issues within white society, here's some issues within black society, here's some issues with
white heritage is definitely shameful. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game in today's world, right? I mean, at least you're supposed to perceive yourself as if you have some kind of guilt because you're white. Which I don't agree with. I think that's like pretty dumb, like we're all individual people. Like I don't think where we come from really matters. So like in that sense of your argument on that, where it's like, yeah, I can see the genetic memory there,
Right.
where it's more antagonist than protagonist to your community. But I don't know, man. Like I don't know what to say about it, because like it just sounds like it's, if I say one thing, I'm gonna sound really racist.
But like I said, I mean, not only every race of people, but every individual has their own burdens and things to overcome, and we're all the same. We're all the same in that way. You know what I mean? Like no one's perfect. Everybody has their own issues. Like, okay, in the white community, like for whatever reason, like in the white community, it seems to be, as of trending now, it seems like white people are more likely to commit atrocities like mass shootings or sexual assault on children. Not to say that doesn't happen in the black community, but it's just more it is, for whatever reason, more prominent in the white community, whereas in the black community there's a lot more like gang violence and things like that plague their community. So every community has their own issues. Every individual has their own issues that we need to overcome. But I think that it is non-productive to not acknowledge the differences sometimes between
I'll say a racist statement. Ready? Here's a racist statement. I would say that white people's inner demons are their own indulgences, where black people's inner demons are earning their stripes for their community.
Maybe, but I mean, I know a lot of black people that have suffered from their own indulgences, whether it be because like black people are more likely, I believe, I could be wrong. Jamie, pull this up. Somebody could fact check me on this, but I believe black people are more likely to die from things like lung cancer from smoking cigarettes. What's that?
And crack.
You know what I mean? So but then I believe,
Black people, do you think we're getting cancer from smoking crack? I don't think I've heard of one instance.
I don't even know if that's
every crackhead that I know is like 90 years old and still kicking.
Sometimes, yeah. Or they get hit by a car or something, like
I know a lot of crackheads. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I definitely would say, like, even though I know a lot of, black people that were close to me that died of heroin, it seems to be a lot more of a white thing than black.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It really does.
So, you can get into all that. Like I said, like race theory sometimes can be dangerous. But I think there is, if you really get down to the biological evolutionary ideas behind some of the stuff, like I think it can be helpful to understand the differences sometimes and be like, okay, this is where we differ for this reason. Like where can we come to a agreement, or something that we all can get along, because I do, it seems, I don't know if it was just because I was a young child and a kid, but it just seems like things back in the 90s, and I wasn't born in the 80s, but I watched stuff from the 80s and stuff. It just seems like whether it be race relations or gender relations, and even, like I said, I'm a Christian, but even religious relations around the world. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's always been issues between religious wars and this, but it just seems like back in the 80s and 90s and stuff, like things weren't as contentious, polarizing and as they are now, And I just wish we could get back to a time.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I just wish we could get back to a time where, we all were just getting along a little better. And I think the main thing it starts with, everything else aside, is being less self-centered and thinking about ourselves and just thinking about humanity as a whole. I think that's where it starts. And there's plenty of other stuff. Like I said, I'm a Christian. There's other stuff that goes into it, but I think if we can get down to not only that, and also gratitude, like people just, like sometimes taking a moment, thinking about where we are as far as all of the amenities and things that we have nowadays compared to, like me and you did talk about this. Like I drove down to Ocean City from back home. I think you drove to Florida, and it's like, you guys realize, like, it took me 6 hours to get to Ocean City. It probably took you what, like 14, 15 hours to get to Florida. And it's like, you realize, like, back in the day, this would have been a 6-month journey and we would have lost 20 people.
Yeah.
Along
children included,
Children, and it's like, I just sometimes, if you really just, stop being so selfish for a minute and really think about all the things that we have to be grateful for in today's society, I think that would alleviate a lot of the contention and issues between everybody. I think that would also help.
I know it would also probably help if everybody got a free air conditioner. I think everybody would be a lot happier if everyone got a free air conditioner. You know what I mean?
How much is a window air conditioning nowadays?
I don't know, dude, but it could be free, and it could make everybody just be like, "Yeah, I'm a little happier now." You know?
Yeah.
So,
well, maybe.
I think on that note, I think that's a good note to end on for this.
Yeah. Even though we started this video saying we were going to do a quick, reviews of shorts and things of videos we were going to watch. We didn't.
I know. You know what? I think that's going to be great content. So real people get them on the next occasion.
On the next one, I would like to get together either tomorrow or whatever and do that video. So
yeah, do it.
Okay.
Let's do
it. All
right.
Let me sign us off here. All right. Anyways, this is our first video episode. Hope you guys found something that was entertaining or educational or whatever. Either way, we're grateful if you watched it. And so once again, this is Nick. This is Aaron.
And this is the Two Mad Dads podcast.
Let's go.